comedian David Boyle, and I'm quitting alcohol, and it's the second last day of the year. Have you got everything fucking planned? Have you booked your socially distanced, COVID safe New Year's Eve extravaganza yet? Most of you are probably in some sort of lockdown or prison of fear, but most of you have probably stockpiled enough booze and enough drugs to black you out for the final hours of 2020. The best and the worst year of all time, depending on what perspective you take. Glass half empty, glass half full. Which one? Does 2020 just go quietly into the night, or does it have another surprise? One last bang before we hit 2021. And if it does have one last surprise, what is it? Like a terrorist attack? An asteroid? Aliens? Who fucking knows? Maybe a new pandemic. And does shit get better next year or does it get worse? Only fucking time will tell. I have some magic mushrooms and I'm tossing up whether to do them on New Year's Eve or not. Some of them at least. But it's not really the environment I had planned on taking hallucinogenics in. It's going to be my dad, his wife, my wife, kids, a couple of my wife's friends and their kid. Yeah, a real shit party, that's what it's going to be. That's not really a magic mushroom party, is it? That is not tripping atmosphere. I start having epiphanies, seeing God, and my wife's like, can you just change the baby's nappy? Shut the fuck up, no one cares. And then I change the baby's nappy, and she's talking to me, and I get all fucking real fucked up. Yeah, I don't think I'll be doing mushrooms on New Year's Eve. I need a block of 8 hours by myself. That's how you do hallucinogenics. No shaman, no sitter, no watcher, no therapist, no one to help you integrate it. Just the fucking dark room, you and God. And when you fucking see God, you better ask him to get you out of that room alive because some people don't fucking make it. Anyway, let's get to it. It's another Boyle Breaks history. It's the final Boyle Breaks history for this year. What a fucking segment it's been. We've covered communism. We've covered some other shit that I've already forgotten. I think I did the potato famine in Ireland that I knew nothing about, which was possibly the most boring thing I've ever read. We've done the Maori Wars. We've done the Berlin Wall. We've done so many subjects that are so close to my heart, but nothing is closer to my heart than tonight's subject. Tonight we're looking into the history of Rastafari. Rastafari, man. Ya feel me, brother? Now you might say, why did he say Rastafari instead of Rastafari? And it's because it's actually Rastafari. And why did he say Rastafari instead of Rastafarianism? Because the Rastafari do not like anything with an ism in it. Like communism, Nazism, racism, homosexuality, anything with an ism in it. So before I went on the deep dive into Rastafari, if you had asked me what a Rastafarian is, I would have said someone who smokes a lot of weed, has dreadlocks, and listens to Bob Marley. And I would have been 99.9% correct. But there is a little bit more to it than that. Not a hell of a lot more though. So usually when I'm doing a Boyle Breaks history, I need to punch it up with a few jokes in there to make it funny and entertaining and worth listening to. But with Rastafari, I did not have to do anything. It's all in there already. Okay, so here we go. We'll start off with the basics. So Rastafari is one of the Abrahamic religions, like Muslimism, Christianity, and Jewishness. And the movement started around the 1930s or something in Jamaica. It follows the Bible, the Christian Bible. The Rastafari God is named Jah, like Jaman. Jaman. So the Rastafarian teachings of the Bible is called Rastology. Jaman, I am an expert in Rastology. I know all the words to Buffalo Soldier. So the Rastafarian way of life they call livity. And I think that's a bunch of shit about living naturally. Don't cut your hair was in Leviticus or some shit like that. I don't know. I glazed over that bit. The Rastafarian promised land they call Zion. And that promised land is Africa, specifically Ethiopia. And Ethiopia plays a very significant role in the future of Rastafari. Just be patient, it's coming. So Zion is the promised land, Ethiopia. Babylon is the oppressive Western land, like USA, England, Jamaica. Everywhere there's whitey. Everywhere there is the white man. The Rastafari hold ceremonies called groundings. These grounding ceremonies consist basically of a group of Rastafarians getting together, chanting, playing drums, and smoking weed. According to that description of the Rastafarian ceremonies, there was a lot of groundings held in my back shed when I was younger. And quite a lot of you might have been holding grounding ceremonies without even knowing it. You could be Rastafarians as well. And as we know, Rastafarians smoke a lot of weed. That is because they believe it brings them closer to God. And it's because ganja forces you to be more introspective and become a better person. Now, here is where it sort of takes a little bit of a weird turn for me. Up until now, you're like, fuck yeah, what a religion. Smoking weed, bongos, fucking dreadlocks, cool accents. Fuck yeah. But the next part I'm going to tell you about is going to make you want to ask, how much weed were the Jamaicans smoking before Rastafari? Okay, so obviously Jamaica and the West Indies and that were fucking run by the English, and the English brought over slaves, and the slaves were African, and they were obviously treated like shit. It's the same story everywhere. So there was this guy called Marcus Garvey, and he was a black nationalist, and he was promoting the idea of repatriation of black slaves back to Africa, mainly Ethiopia. Yeah, from the tropical island of Jamaica back to Ethiopia. If I was a Jamaican, I would have been like, hey, can we just stay here? Don't worry about repatriation. Can you give us some reparations? Give us some fucking money and I'll just stay at the beach, huh? So anyway, Marcus Garvey, he became an influential character and his ideas started catching on. And he said, look to Africa, when a black king shall be crowned, for the day of deliverance is at hand. Which just sounds like he was fucking riffing. If you could ask him, he would probably say, I can't even remember saying it. Can't remember saying that. I was in the moment. I was riffing. I had just got a blowy before lunch. My mind was just fucking firing. The synapses were going. So anyway, 10 years after Marcus Garvey prophesied that shit, Haile Selassie of Ethiopia was anointed Emperor of Ethiopia. So I guess the king was crowned and the day of deliverance was at hand. And when Haile Selassie was crowned Emperor of Ethiopia, the Queen and the King of England or some shit went to Ethiopia and bowed before him out of respect. And photos of this went around the world. And Haile Selassie was on the cover of Time magazine. And all this filtered back to Jamaica. And a guy named Leonard Howe, who had been a follower of Marcus Garvey, put two and two together and announced that Haile Selassie was the second coming of Jesus, was God incarnate. And so he started Rastafari. And the name Rastafari is Haile Selassie's birth name. Rus being the equivalent of a duke. Haile Selassie was like royalty or some shit. And Haile Selassie's actual birth name is Tafari Mikonnen. And that's where you get the name Rastafari. And now you're like, fuck, they have some good ganja over there. And so Haile Selassie became a god-like figure in Rastafari. No, not even that. He was God. He was the incarnation of God. I'm not fucking making this up either. Look it up. So Haile Selassie went to Jamaica one time and over 100,000 high as fuck Rastafarian Jamaicans went to greet him at the airport. And when he came off the plane, he waved out. And a lady in the crowd saw him wave and said she saw the stigmata in his hand, the hole where Jesus was nailed to the cross. And so she went back and told her boyfriend what she saw, and her boyfriend was Bob Marley, and then Bob Marley became a Rastafarian, and because he could play some fucking killer tunes, it sort of took off. And then by 1975, Ethiopia was in the fucking shit. There was a big famine going on. Haile Selassie wasn't in control anymore. Then the communists came in, a communist junta took him out, and a year later caught him and fucking killed him. And then in 1980 or 81 or something, Bob Marley died. And then the Rastafarians sort of lost a little bit of momentum. But there's still like 1 million Rastafari floating around the world. So that is the history of Rastafari, and it's also why you should probably ease up on the dope smoking a little bit. Just take it easy. All right, that's it for me tonight. If you're enjoying the podcast, share it around, subscribe to it, add me on social media. I'm Boyle Comedy on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, and I'll see you the fuck later.